This episode of The Inspiration Show is extremely special because I love today's guest more than I ever thought I could. The incredible Carson Stewart is joining me. Carson is one of my favorite people and performers and has had such a special impact on my life and theater journey. Thank you so much, Carson, for being here. This is so special.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
So, when did you discover that you had a passion for singing and for theater?
Yeah, I started theater in like around the second grade. I saw my best friend in a production, like a local community production, and I had always played piano and I'd been singing, I guess, around the house, but I didn't know that you could combine all of them together. So I started doing that, and then I got really serious around high school. I was an EMT in high school. So I was debating whether I would go into the medical profession, whether I wanted to be a doctor, and I realized that that was not the path that I wanted to go down. And I really leaned into theater, and ever since then, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Oh, I love it. That's incredible. And you kind of were a little doctory in the notebook, so you kind of got to tap into that.
I feel like I did get to use a lot of my lived-in experience for that. He had a lot of Johnny was very eager. I think I was very eager when I was in high school as well.
Yeah. You had your Johnny Carson access card, so I think it's safe to say you made it.
I completely agree. Yes.
So, what would you say really inspired you to become a performer and who's been an inspiration of yours throughout your career?
Absolutely. I think so. My parents were very encouraging of me. My senior year of high school, they're like, if you really want to do this, you should go and audition in the city and see what that's like. So, January of my senior year, I went into the city and I went to an open call for a national tour. And I sang 8 bars, and it was the craziest experience of my life. And I just kept getting called back and called back. First audition I ever went on, and then I ended up booking that tour. I did the Fame National Tour when I was a senior in high school. I deferred my acceptance to Northwestern, where I ended up going to school, and I went on tour for a year. And it was a very scrappy tour. It wasn't like a large equity scale tour. So I got to learn a lot about the country and a lot about the amazing people that I was with. I think those people really inspired me to really pursue this. Most of them now have had fantastic careers. I'll give some of them a shout out. Hunter Brown just closed Swept Away. Marie Ify is in, she's in Alphaba Standby, or Alphaba Understudy, I should say, on the tour, and she's done a lot of other things. Chris Roberts was in Beetlejuice. Like a lot of them have gone on to do amazing things, but those are the people that really fostered my love of the art. Um, and then since then, I had some amazing professors in college, namely my acting professor, Gail Shapiro, at Northwestern. And then I booked notebooks straight out of school. So Michael, Greif, obviously, and Shelley have been huge inspirations for me, as well as the associate director, Asmarat. So I think those people have always encouraged my growth, but also my peers in school, and any of my scene partners also are very, very inspirational to me.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Can you take us back to the first time you experienced theater and what that was like for you?
Yes, I saw The Lion King on Broadway. That was the first time that I saw a professional production. I had never seen the movie at the time, I don't think, but I was so terrified of like the puppets and like the stampede that it was just so real to me. And I was looking back at it, I'm like, oh, I definitely was moved by that experience. Even at the time, I was so terrified that my parents were like embarrassed that they had brought me. But that was a very and then I grew up going to shows with my dad, and after that that became kind of our my dad. I'm one of 5 kids, and all of them are very athletic. I was never the most athletic child, and so my dad's special bonding with me would be going to see a show. I grew up in Connecticut, so it's only 45 minutes away from the city, so we would go see a show. And we most of my early theater memories are with him, and we saw so many amazing performances. Some of we saw How to Succeed with Daniel Radcliffe. That was a huge moment for me. Um, Color Purple. We were at first preview. Got to see the birth of the star of Cynthia Erivo. That was
Oh, yeah.
incredible. But yeah, I think whenever I think of theater, I think of my dad, and I think that's why Every time I'm at a show, I feel very connected with him. So
Oh, that's awesome. And shout out Kids Night on Broadway speech. Thank you,
it's
Notebook.
like on Broadway. I know we're good
Let's
at
go.
it. I know.
So fast forward to now, you completed an incredible run in The Notebook the musical on Broadway, which was also your Broadway debut, portraying
Yeah,
Johnny and Finn while understudying young Noah. It's so weird to say Johnny and Finn because like the entire run, I just said Johnny Finn.
Johnny Finn. I
It's
know.
so weird. So before getting cast in the show, were you at all familiar with the story of The Notebook and or have any connection to it? And why did you feel the need to be telling the story?
Absolutely. I actually had never seen The Notebook. I'd known loosely of the story, but I auditioned my senior year of college, and I just knew the team. Like the team was incredible. I performed "You and I" by Ingrid Michaelson with a great friend of mine at my middle school talent show, and so she was really the selling point for me. And Michael as well has been an inspiration for a long time. I think most of us in theater, his shows have been like
Yeah,
such trailblazers and like redefined the whole genre. I think every single one.
100%.
So I just see his impeccable taste and direction, and I think I was really excited about that. I went to school outside Chicago, so Chicago Shakespeare Theater has always been like a great incubator of new work. So that's what really excited me. And it actually, as I went in blind to the piece, I was originally the offstage swing. I basically was Charlie Webb of Chicago, and then I got to move up when we transferred to Broadway. But I had the pleasure. I was not in the piece, but I got to witness it and witness its creation. My grandma actually was a painter. She was a beautiful painter. She lived in Florida, and sadly, during the pandemic, she passed away due to Alzheimer's, or I should say, dementia. It was never officially diagnosed as Alzheimer's, but um, I think something that really resonated with me in the Notebook is just the way that we care for people. Especially, there's a scene where the dad, played by Charles Wallace, comes in and has to somewhat do a performance or like pretend with his mother that they've never met. And I think my grandma said something to my dad along the lines of like, whenever she would be really confused, she would just be like, I have no idea who you are, but I just know that you're a very nice man. And so like something I'm was very intrigued to what the brain remembers, or what the heart remembers after the brain is gone, and how we still feel connected to people even when we can't fully remember them. Same with, and so that was one of the most beautiful parts of the Notebook. I cried like almost every day in rehearsal just because Marianne was so specific and moving. Um, yeah, and back then it was John Beasley as older Noah who sadly passed away, and I think that adds another element of legacy and connection to the piece as well, is that we all suffered this loss as a company, and his spirit remained on in the piece as we move forward.
Yeah. I think I can speak for so many people when I say it's the most beautiful show that we've ever seen.
I loved it. I think anywhere from the music to the book, and then the movement by Katie Spellman was just incredible. I think in establishing both Ali and Noah, but memory and uh, yeah, I think I agree. I think it was very beautiful.
I think what I always used to joke about is, our saying during the run was chasing life. Thank you, Chase W. But I think the show is like a beautiful depiction of life, and especially how it was set up with the young, middle, and older, because you didn't really get to see that in the movie as much. So I think it was really cool to really get to tie into all those characters, and even though that it's the same person, it's different people throughout, and it was so incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, and that's something that we love to highlight, even in rehearsals, was that like your Ali and your Noah are specific to you. And that's why all of us were cast even as understudies. Like my Noah was very different than Charlie's Noah and very different than Benji's and John's. Like it wasn't, which I loved about our company and our creative team, was that it didn't have to be carbon copies of the performance. You just got to bring yourself to that. So yeah, I agree. It was very beautiful to see everyone's interpretation.
Yeah. So before, like, could you share a bit about your journey with the Notebook from the audition process all the way to Broadway, especially because you've been involved with the production since its early days in Chicago?
Absolutely. So I went into audition, I think it was September of 2021. I was fresh out of school, and I remember the packet was very long, like because I had to do what was I doing? I did all the Young Noah stuff, and I did all the Johnny Finn stuff. It was called, his name was Justin back in Chicago.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
uh, and then it got renamed for John Beasley, who passed, which is very sweet. But Justin, Finn, and Finn used to have more singing material. And then I don't think I did lawn, but then lawn was added on to my assignments for the understudy. So I walked into the room. I thought it was going to be four people, but it was like 40 people. It was the directors, the creative team, Chicago Shakespeare staff, casting, the music director, the music team, intimacy choreographer. It was such a huge room. I was very surprised. And I was in there for a very long time doing material, but I will never forget, and I've laughed about this with Ingrid, is that I sang Sadness and Joy was the first thing that I sang. And everyone was like, okay. Like I think they were very excited. And then they're like, Ingrid, what do you think? And she was on Zoom and she's like, he's saying half the notes wrong. And I was like, what? And we had only been given plunk tracks, but I couldn't like, sometimes there are choral like oohs. I don't know if you know, but like it like doesn't, I couldn't really hear it. So I was like, I think I know the song pretty well. And then I had to relearn the song in the room and then re-sing it again. That was a very stressful moment because I, again, as I said, I sang Ingrid Michaelson in middle school. Like I was so excited to meet her, and then I feel like I let her down within the first 2 minutes of meeting her. But then I relearned the song, and she was like, "Oh, he's great." And then we did some scene work, and then we booked that. And it was just wonderful to have my first job out of college being watching these incredible actors and learning from them. And so I really got to see the piece develop in Chicago. Whether, I mean, there used to be a county fair scene that was cut kind of like in the movie. So we spent some time developing that and realizing that we were just going to change it to the dock instead of the county fair. There used to be a lot more music that was cut or replaced. And then I went on for Johnny Finn or Justin Finn, the fourth preview. Marianne, the John Beasley, who played older Noah, and the actor playing Justin and Finn, all got COVID. And so, without any rehearsal, I went on for a week. This is back in the Omicron days in Chicago. And that was, I felt like I still got to help develop that piece a little bit just because it was so early in previews. And I felt such an attachment to that character. And whether it was like me being an EMT or just like my sense of humor, I feel like it really aligned. And that it was a really wonderful experience. I got to go on with Jerome, who ended up being the cover for Broadway as well. And so we had a great relationship on stage, and we got to find things every night. And we had just been watching, so we got to really be in the moment and find things, which I think was wonderful. During that week, they rewrote that speech that I give when I'm reading the Notebook after Iron in the Fridge.
My favorite part of the
Just
show.
a
Let's
little
go.
section where I should probably stop reading this out loud. Um, I remember the first time I went on, we got the monologue that day, and instead of like, "Damn, Mr. Calhoun," I was like, "Damn, Noah." And then I got walked off stage, and Becca was like, "Did you say Noah instead of Mr. Calhoun?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." She was like, "Your character would never call him by his first name." I was like, "I know, I know." But so I think that was beautiful, and then just seeing the team right. I mean, Andrea and I during the Broadway rehearsal process had a conversation about what our characters wants, which I mean, we're supporting characters. Sometimes some musicals wouldn't really take the time to develop what our needs were, but we totally rewrote the end of the Becca rewrote the beginning of Act Two based on a conversation that we had where she was like, "Look, you're used to people getting better. Like I'm a physical therapist. I'm like Noah can get better if he just stretches, but she's like, I work with the patients that don't get better, and so your optimism is actually harmful and gives people a sense of false hope that is dangerous." And then Becca was like, we were having this conversation, and then we came back, and it was a new scene the next day that she had written that I feel like really made the play better. And Ingrid writes new songs in 30 minutes all the time. So like Blue Shutters was written during the Super Bowl, I think. She was just like,
Yeah, when Charlie told me that,
yeah.
jaw literally dropped.
She wrote I Paint. I was not there for this, but Michael was like, I think we need a song for when she talks about her painting, and she wrote that in 30 minutes, like on a napkin or something, and then came
That
back.
I didn't
Like,
know.
yeah.
Whoa.
Um, but she just works so quickly. She's such a talented person, and getting to learn ukulele from Ingrid too was absolutely amazing. So I don't know, it's been beautiful to watch the show develop and see what really like. I want to go back has been the same since the first day of rehearsal. But seeing different moments change, like the rain dance, or I'm trying to think what really changed for Broadway. But yeah, I don't know. Uh, it's been it was such a wonderful journey and such a great first job to have and a great debut. I can't ask
Yeah.
for.
Oh, this is a perfect segue into our next question. Having been with the show since the out of town tryout in Chicago and portraying these roles from the beginning, how do you think your personal portrayal of these characters has evolved and developed over time?
Absolutely. I think that luckily I feel like I kind of had a second college with this show, which is nice, and that I got to learn about a lot about acting, not by like learning in a classroom, but just by doing it and watching it. And so I think in Chicago, something that I was really concerned was just like the humor, and that's like all I was worried about. Like, is this gonna get a laugh? Or um even as Noah, like when I would do the understudy rehearsal for Noah, like that first scene where it's like, hey, I'm Noah, I'm Ali, I'm Noah. Like I was like, that has to get a big laugh. And watching Marianne every night, I think she's never concerned about the laugh or anything. She's like, I listen and I respond. And it sounds so elementary, but she was like, good actors are good actors because they listen. And that is something that I really took to heart for Broadway, and something that I really, really wanted to work on was, okay, not only am I active listening, I think that's something that you hear a lot in classes and in notes. Like, I really want to see you active listen, but like when I listen, how does that change how I respond to what you're saying? It's very simple, but being in a scene with her and Dorian, it's like a master class every day. It's never the same. And so I felt like I would be letting them down if I just gave them the same performance or like told the joke the same way in the way that I knew would get a laugh. So I think that was something that was huge. That's something that really, as Moret, who was the associate director, and I worked on, was okay. Yes, Carson, you know how to tell a joke, but how what it, like it's okay if a line doesn't get a laugh for a night if you're just really in the scene. And I think that was something that was really important to me. And then something that I really experimented with for Finn and Johnny was the and this was just a personal thing, but I really wanted Marianne, when she sees me in Act Two as Johnny, to recognize part of Finn as well, which is why she feels so comfortable to me. So I think both Finn and Johnny have a certain flirtatiousness, or like they kind of have a little bit of a crude humor, whether it's like with Georgie, or Johnny is like really obsessed with the part of the Notebook that gets a little salacious. But um, finding the similarities between those, I think those were some of the things that I tried to focus on when we moved to Broadway, and I actually got to start creating the role instead of covering the role.
Yeah, I think your humor, as I was telling you, like it made the show for me. Like my first words after the show, through sobbing through tears, were "Who allowed Carson to be that funny?" So, I mean, I totally think that that humor, like, because you have you have the sadness and the joy of the show, no pun intended, but
Yeah,
pun intended. And I feel like you got to bring so much joy to that through Johnny and Finn, because you were playing two characters within the same show, but they both brought so much heart to it. And I think that was so special to see, when you have to deal with those challenging subjects that sometimes are hard to watch, but important to watch.
absolutely, absolutely.
So stepping into the roles of Johnny and Finn was so beautiful and, as much as I could imagine, complex, because you're essentially playing two different people in one show. What was that experience like for you juggling two characters?
Absolutely. I think that what I established, and like I think that the doubling in the show was very intentional. Like the mother and Nurse Lori pair. I think that if we're assuming that this story is about Allie, which it is, and it's her understanding of the world, is that maybe in memory, like we are not the same people, but we are in the hospital, and she's putting faces to the stories of her past. So I kind of approached it as, yes, there the same, somewhat of the same person. There is a similar energy between the both of them that Allie is able to recognize and I guess project onto me of her memory. So like I, as Johnny, am also Finn, and not really Finn as Johnny, but uh, if that makes sense. So like physical similarities, like both of them move pretty quickly. They shift their weight a lot. And then energetically, I think they both enjoy a good joke. But I don't know. I think something that was really wonderful to explore as Finn was just the amount of care that you can have for a friend. And like it's pretty high stakes at the end of Act One, where his best friend is about to get arrested for like kidnapping this girl who he's in love with that her parents don't approve of him, and he really gets to like fiercely protect his friend. And I think that in Chicago when I was the understudy, I was just like so worried about like, okay, let me enter and like find the flashlight and do all the mechanics of it. But at its core, it's like I really get to tell off Allie at the end of Act One and say, like, why did you do this to my like? It's the only time that like Noah never really gets to confront Allie about her choice. Like I guess right before I paint and sadness and joy, he's like, I don't care about your parents, screw them. But that's really the most anger that we see from him. But like Finn really gets to express anger on behalf of Noah's behalf, saying like, why did you hide him from your folks for so long? This was, and then like saying to her point blank, like this with your choices, this was never gonna last forever, and kind of getting, I don't know, I really loved that moment, just getting to stick up for my friend. That was really beautiful. And then Johnny, I got to just become really great friends with Dorian. I mean, I think that we had a wonderful relationship off the stage that translated on the stage. Like I will never forget. He has so many incredible stories, and I feel like our real life relationship paralleled the one on stage. Like I'll never forget. He was like, last time I was on Broadway, I was the lead of the show with some newcomer that I was really skeptical of, and the newcomer was named Morgan Freeman. I was like, oh my gosh! Like he's worked with the greats, and so has Marianne, and so I don't know. I think just really developing that relationship with Dorian was so fruitful and sustaining for an entire run. I was never bored on stage because he was my scene partner for basically the whole show. So I never really interacted with anyone else. But I think those are the two things that I really enjoyed and got to develop in on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was so special getting to watch you and Dorian together and like Home. I mean, obviously the whole show sends shivers down your spine, but Home like specifically is like that high stakes moment. And like you on the cast recording, I listened to that on repeat. It's so good. I always would tell everyone, I was like, I'm so sad I didn't get to see you and Charlie do the show together, but specifically that beginning part of Home. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that sometime. But I was like, that beginning part, it's so good.
Actually, a fun fact is that Charlie, I forget if this was in rehearsal. You can tell him about this, but like we went so hard at the fight section where it was like, you got to get out of here. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to jail. I can't go to the, I need to go to the army. No, I can't go to
Who
jail.
put you in the
Uh,
army if you go to jail, Noah?
I actually elbowed him in the face and he had like blood dripping out of his mouth.
That he did not share.
Yeah, so I felt really bad about that. But I mean, it was cool because I mean, Charlie and I became so close during this process, and we both got to be Noah and Finn for each other, and so that was great too. It was like, oh, I'm just acting on stage with my best friend, but like
Oh
as
my babes.
but like it was cool that we both got to be Finn and we both got to be Noah and we both got to be, I don't know. I feel like that was really great as well. And like adjusting to Benji too was really fun because his energy is so much different than John's. And I mean, but getting to build it with John was amazing. I bow down to John Cardoza, and you can
Oh,
quote.
I we all do. And
Yeah,
what's so special for you is like you had, correct me if I'm wrong, like a near 3-year journey with this show.
yeah, yeah. There was a lot
Incredible.
of downtime in between where we were like, I really want this to come to Broadway,
Yeah.
and then it did. But yeah, it's been a beautiful 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. And it's going out on tour. I'm so happy it's going across the country so everyone gets to see it. I'm so happy.
I'm so happy. I think that audiences will really respond to it across. I mean, it's such a universal story. Even if you're not
Yeah.
affected by Alzheimer's or dementia, like there is some element that you can
Yeah.
relate to and find. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a story about love, and everyone has love in them. So I think that that's why it was so beautifully connected to people, and just it's gonna be awesome.
absolutely.
So, time for my favorite day because I went crazy when I found out you were going on for Noah. On December 8th, you made your young Noah debut.
Yeah,
So, can you walk us through that day and share what it was like to finally step into that role? What was going through your head?
absolutely. I think that I've been covering the role for. John never called out while we were in Chicago when I was the offstage swing, so I never got to go on there, which is great. It's definitely a role that really is. It's an intimidating thing. I mean, it's so fun to sing, but I was definitely scared. For especially in Chicago, I think I was still developing my voice, and then we got to Broadway, and I was doing the show every night, so they didn't really want to pull me out of that. But it was an experience that I really wanted just to and something that we talked about, Andre and I talked about, was like so much of our work as the supporting cast is like work done off the stage and filling in the gaps. Like what happens between the time that I go pew 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 like to Noah to the next morning when I come in, I'm like, where's Mr. Calhoun? And it was like he got transferred to the hospital. Like so much of that is work that you have to do as an actor off stage. Like I'm filling in the gaps. Whereas for Noah and like a larger character, you get to see that work done on stage. Like the journey is full on stage instead of off. And so that was an experience that I really wanted to. It was just not to fill in the gaps, but to just like exist and like find a journey on stage in front of an audience. Like that's I think the dream. Um and so I got the call. It was a Sunday, so we had just finished the matinee. It was a two show Sunday, so we had done the matinee and Benji was in the matinee. I think wasn't feeling well. I think he was sick. And so I think we knew he was calling out. So I thought it was Charlie. And then I got a call from my stage manager saying, like, are you ready? And do you want to do this? And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, you're on for Noah tonight. And I was like, okay. I was getting a burger at the time. I probably wouldn't have had a burger if I knew that I was going on, for Noah. And I went and got ready, and I felt we rehearsed it once a week for 10, 11 months. So I felt very ready. I had never done it with Anna though. So I it was just a great exercise, as Marianne would say, and listening and trusting. And like again, because we're so individual, like and we were encouraged to be so individual, like my Noah is so different than Charlie and Benji's. And so I think we had a great time really finding our own rhythm for the scenes and what our relationship was. I mean, like I am like significant, like something that Andrea was saying was like I'm significantly taller than Benji and Charlie, and so when I'm at dinner across from her, she was like, "You were much more physically imposing to me, which made me angrier that you were with my daughter." Like I think like it re-energized the show in a new way, which was great. And it was a wonderful experience. And I saw this thing, I think it was on Actors Equity page about it was for National Swing Day. And it's really stuck with me was that the principal cast gets to fix their mistakes every night. So like I don't know if you saw this interview. I
I
forget
did.
the actor is getting interviewed, but it was a wonderful interview. But a swing, you have to fix it the next time. You have to live with that mistake and fix it the next time that you're on. So I only got to go on once. So I'm still living with. I didn't make that many mistakes, but there are things that I would the moment would pass, and I would say, oh, if I got to do that again, I would do that differently. And I think that is something that is it's frustrating as a swing, but I only got one shot and I did it, and I feel happy with how it went. But I think that was something that it was. I heard that interview last week, and I was like, oh, that's such a good summary of how it feels to be a swing or an understudy.
And it was the most special night at the Schoenfeld. It was so special. I was so happy about to go on because it was what, like a week before closing? Because yeah,
Exactly.
closing was
Yeah,
the 15th. Yeah. Oh, I was so happy. So, what was your experience like understudying Noah while also being on stage as Johnny Finn and kind of juggling that? And how did it enrich your understanding of the story from different perspectives?
absolutely. So it was great that I was the cover in Chicago. So I had a familiarity with both roles before I was even part of the onstage cast every night. So I think that also was helpful. Was that like so much of my time in Chicago was based on mechanics. Like, okay, I know Noah is like when he kneels for the painting, he's on right too, and like all this stuff. Like I knew all the numbers and everything perfectly because that's the one job as a swing is like you don't want your like I didn't want my alley who if I had to go on to ever worry about like where I was supposed to be. Like I didn't want her to think that like oh I have to pull him or I mean there's this like you've heard the expression like shove with love. Of course there's going to be some shoving with love, but like I think my biggest thing as a swing was like I didn't want to ever have that actor or my scene partner worried about what I was like where I was supposed to be. I just wanted them to worry about what was happening in the scene. So I think I'm so glad I got to be part of the offstage company for Chicago because that gave me such a great understanding of like placement and blocking. And I'd never been a swing before, so it was definitely like a big learning curve. And then when I got to then when we got to Broadway, I got to focus on Johnny Finn every night. I had done it for a week in Chicago out of our 2 month run, and so I felt very comfortable with that. But then Noah, we got to find so much more, and so I don't know. I think watching John work is something that was really illuminating for me. I mean, he and Jordan were constantly mining the text and rediscovering things, even through the time that they departed the show. Like I feel like their discoveries weren't done, which was so exciting to watch every night. I think like just exploring what how like vulnerability for Noah was my biggest thing, and that was what was always like blue shutters, right? You give her the house, you paint your dream, and then she crushes it. She's like, I have to go. My parents don't really want to know about you. And so, like, what does it feel to be like a live wire just to have somebody like snip it? Like, I just think mining the text for just how deep you can go and reveal yourself, I think was something that I really got to hone over rehearsal, and that is largely due to our amazing swings and understudies. Like we ran the show once a week with just the understudies, and so um, I think all of us did some really good work on the text. And Becca just laid it all out for us. Like there's not much you don't have to put anything else on the line. The line is just the line. So it's so expertly crafted. And like, Michael and Shelley really helped craft that and like reduced to what it was exactly needed, but just trusting your partner and trusting the text, I think, was really useful.
Yeah, oh, and I have to go back to that Blue Shutters because that was such a special moment in the show, and I love it when Allie goes, "I gotta go, the matinee gets out at 4." I'm like, "Actually, they normally get out at 4:45, but yeah." That was my little chuckle, and my mom goes, "Why'd you laugh at that?" I was like, "I'll tell you later." But my mom and I were sitting there just oh my gosh, we were bawling, and then every time you came on stage, I was laughing, and then the whole, I was walking with Charlie to go to Los Tacos, and, the whole way I was going, "Mr. Calhoun!" I can't get Carson out of my head.
I know. I remember the first time I did that first Johnny in Chicago, and Michael was like, "Whoa, what?"
Yeah, because you got,
That was
like,
so
up the
silent.
option at the end.
I think I just really wanted to keep my head down. It's like no one really knew what I was
Yeah,
about, or like that I loved comedy, and then I went on and I just made everyone laugh. I think that was I don't know. It's you have to laugh during the Notebook. It's so sad.
yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Charlie
Oh,
was hilarious when he won for Donnie Finn every time. So,
yeah.
glad that's my legacy. If I can make people laugh, that's a great legacy for that production.
Oh, no, it was the best. So, what would you say your favorite part about portraying these roles and bringing The Notebook to the Broadway stage was? And was there a particular scene, song, and moment in the show that you looked forward to performing each day?
Yes, I think what I really What I loved the most about Johnny, I will say, was that like he is the one person that Noah like that listens to Noah. I think he's kind of in a place in his life where he's lost his wife essentially. Like she's doesn't know who he is, and he has to try every day to do something for her. But like Johnny is the one person who, like, I think my objective and my action for like half of Act One is just like get him to trust me or like get him to open up to me. Um, and then once, so that was something that I really pushed every night, and I feel like made my character go from being like the funny comic relief to just like actually being a real person. Was like, okay, I have to get you to trust me, and like we're obviously not going to do physical therapy. That's obvious. You're not interested in that. But what if we mind this relationship? And there used to be even in Chicago, there used to be like a scene where he was like, "Listen, your insurance is charging me for 8 sessions. If I don't log these sessions, I don't get paid. So let's just talk." Like, and that used to be a scene which I've kind of carried with me, which is like, let's use this time for you. Like, I'm here. Like, talk to me. And I think that was. And Dorian definitely gave me a lot of resistance. Like, I mean, older Noah gave me a lot of resistance, and it was different every night. Because he's so focused on his wife. But I think that was probably the most rewarding part was when you finally feel the breakthrough, and that was something that was different from night to night. So like sometimes I felt like I won Dorian over in the first scene, and sometimes I think it took two or three to really crack through. And then one moment I loved to perform was just, um, I think too was I want to go back. I think seeing Marianne. I mean Marianne. That was. I think I want to go back is probably watching it
Yeah.
as a swing was like one of my favorite theatrical moments I'll ever get to witness in my life. Um, just the way she runs around the stage and is both like
Hmm.
old and young at the same time, I think is so like when she crouches, like her physicality, everything, and just getting to serve her and connect with her, like when we're all breathing in and looking at her, I think that was, and you know that you're just like strengthening her and her life and her vision to sustain throughout the rest of the performance. I think that was absolutely exhilarating for me every night. And it was so different every night. Like sometimes she would like laugh at us, or sometimes she would just be like sobbing. I think uh, I just felt like fuel. Like I felt like I don't know.
It just poured out of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I felt like we were all fueling her, which is like
Yeah.
that role is
Yeah.
crazy. It's you carry the whole production on your back, and so just getting to look at her and say like, you don't have like we're all breathing right now and we're sustaining you, and I think, and she would look at different people every night. Like it was just so full, and I really looked forward to that every day. And then this is gonna sound weird, but like finding them at the end of the play was something that I always enjoyed, and like a I think it proves the thesis. It was that like for at least for my character, like I went and I read to her even when Nurse Lori told me not to, because I believed that she was still in there and she could understand. And to a point, she did. And so it was like whether my action helped that or I like felt a little pride in the fact that A, they remembered each other, but also watching Andrea put them back together is like her believing in my philosophy of hope as well. And so like, okay, love did win, and she could remember him at the end, and we just got to share a hug and be like that. We just witnessed something beautiful. Like I'll never forget. Shelley was like when you walk into that, and being an EMT, it's like when you see somebody pass, it's like it's this like holy experience, even though it's extremely sad. But it's like I got to be with that person in the last moment of their life. And we and Andre and I got to feel that every night and just like have this reverence for what we watched, and then we got to support each other. And I think it was very simple. There used to be words to that scene, and we realized that it was more powerful when it was just completely silent. So like we tried various different versions. Even in previews, there used to be lines there, and then we just did it silently. And I think that's when Michael was always striving for that perfect moment at the end, and he was like, "What if we just did it with no words?" And we did a rehearsal, and everyone was very moved, and that's the way that it was. So I feel like those two moments I really looked forward to every night. And
Yeah,
Oath
no,
It as well. I think that's when I
yeah.
came out. I think that's one of the, that was such a great entrance on the ballot. So
I will never forget that moment.
I love that. So, anyways, but I think those are the two of the deeper ones that sustained me as an actor throughout the entire run.
Yeah, and the silence, it speaks so loudly. And like it's so crazy to see how because like in theater school, like your directors will always teach you like you need to fill the house with your voice. But
Yeah,
it's so beautiful to see when that silence fills the house. It's so beautiful and it's rarely something that you see in a production. So I thought that that was really special.
yeah. I think there's like I can think of like so, and then there's one other great silent moment, which is when Charles, like his whole family leaves, and he just steps forward and looks at his mom and is like, I hope you're okay, and I love you. And it's like it's a silent moment. We're all waiting for I want to go back, but it's like 20 seconds of silence. And I think when silence is earned, it's so charged and incredible. I think they did a really good job of doing that in this production.
We also have to quickly touch on Dance with Me because we share a similarity in that it made it on our Spotify Wraps. You for different reasons. But I love that song. We have to talk about doing that every night.
It was so fun. I mean, I that's where I got to learn ukulele with Ingrid.
Yeah.
We didn't end up actually playing on Broadway, but in Chicago we were playing. Like the instruments were full.
Really?
Um, I think it ended up being like a union issue
Yeah.
with the musicians union and Broadway. I think for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Makes
contract,
sense.
but so I mean, I was still playing the chords, but you couldn't hear the guitar. But that was so fun, and it's just fun. Like it's the one moment in the show where it's like so carefree.
Mhm.
Nothing's really happened yet, and you just get to like Dorcas and I would torment those Noahs like no other. Um, and I like even during the silence, like on Broadway, you learn like it's so different than like the other theater you do in your life where you're like when I'm not talking on stage, like I have to be quiet. But like when my mic, I knew when my mic was off, and I would like go up to Noah and be like, "You should go talk to her. Like looks so good." And like whenever Anna would come out, she's like her wig was different than Jordan's. I was like, "Oh my gosh, she has bangs!" Like all this stuff, all these ad libs that just to make Benji break. Um, but I don't know. It's just a fun, electric minute and a half song.
Oh,
But
it's so good.
actually, like for the swings, that's like the hardest number because there's so much like getting him back onto the crate and then onto the pylon. Like it's there's
Yeah.
actually movement and then and that can feel really chaotic if if it's not precise. So it's
I
perfect.
remember Yeah, I remember, this is gonna sound so mean. I promise I'm a nice person. I remember the night of your Noah debut. I remember Charlie going over Dance with Me on Live for Five at like 5 minutes before placement. I was like, let's go dance with me.
It's
Oh,
yeah, no, it's
such
chaos up
fun.
there, and it's like so much like jumping and like trying to
Yeah.
block it. Like I don't know, but it was one of the most rehearsed things as a Noah cover and a Finn Johnny cover.
Yeah.
That's a once you get through that, you're like, okay, now I just have to sing as
Yeah.
Noah. I'm done with the hard stuff. Yeah.
So The Notebook had such an incredible run, and it was amazing to see this beloved story brought to Broadway in musical form. Is there one lesson or takeaway from your time in the show that you'll hold on to forever?
Um, I think that I have been a part of a lot of casts, and the way that this cast and crew interacted, I think that it was just a great lesson in kindness and community, and the way that like we all felt like one huge family backstage, whether that's like the dresser or the A2 or the wig assistant. Like I think that everyone got along, and it was just such. It was so wonderful to see everyone at the top of their craft. Like I mean, from at all aspects. Like the costumes were so beautiful, the transitions were so beautiful, the lighting was so beautiful. Like everyone had honed their craft, and it was just like a bunch of people at the top of their game getting to interact, which can lead to some problems if people like have huge egos or anything. But everyone just we had the best time backstage. Like I miss those people so dearly. So I think treating everyone with kindness is somewhat like getting to see me. Of course, at the beginning of my career, I'm going to treat everyone with kindness, and I will going forward, obviously. But like seeing Marianne, who's like won Tonys and everything, just like get to interact with everyone. I think that was just seeing how much of a team sport theater can be, even at the highest level. I think was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And like the work is never done. Like that's the thrilling part about theater versus film is that like film you get one take or like you get your takes and then it's done. But like theater you do it every night. Like there's so much work to be done. And I think not allowing myself like turning off my third eye, turning off my critic, like I made choices some nights that were absolutely horrific but felt honest to me in the moment and I have to honor that. Like I was like, that was what that's how I was motivated to deliver that line. And do I wish I could take it back? Yes. Do I wish I could say cut? Like let's reset? Yes. But we go on. And so I think I really got to turn off my critic for a lot of it, and it was just a thrilling experience to just release.
Yeah.
I don't know, be on my spine, be the word as I speak it, and then just let it go. I think that was Jordan, Tyson, and I had a lot of conversations about that.
Mhm.
And she's so inspired. She's like my peer. She's crushing it. But she's just such an inspiring scene partner. She was like, okay, I didn't try to manipulate or control the scene. I just let it go, and I probably would have done it differently looking back at it. But that's the way that it went today. And I was like, that's exactly how I felt. And then that's where I mean, you would see her be absolutely brilliant and make a new choice that I've never seen before, and it was so electrifying. So I think this was the longest run of a show that I've ever done. So that's what kept it fresh for me was just knowing that the work is never done. Like you've never figured out the scene, even though I mean maybe you finally figure it out. But I feel like even doing three over 300 performances, I never did. I was still finding new things.
You know, I would always laugh at my theater teacher because he would say, you'd do a show and you'd say a line that you think it's the proper way to say it, and 20 years later, that line will come to your head and be like, "Oh, that's how I was supposed to deliver it." But that's the beautiful thing about theater is like you start the show, it's a roller coaster and it never stops because you don't get to say cut. No shade to TV and film, we love you. But with theater, you never stop. You got one shot at it and that's it.
Yeah, it's fleeting. The moment passes, and it's like you don't get another. I mean, like that audience is probably not. I mean, like besides the super fans, like they're not going to you do that again. Like that was the one time that they got to see you do that, and like finding just the honesty of that moment, and it's different every night. Like that's um and that's why like again when I talked about like doing the work off stage versus on stage, like Noah is so exciting every night because you get to be so live in that decision making. Like Johnny Finn, it's like okay great, we're filling in the gaps, but um I don't know, both of them had great moments of I had some great discoveries and some horrible discoveries that I was like I wish I didn't discover that in front of 1,000 people right now. That's not how I should say my life. But yeah.
Yeah, and it was so special. I mean, like, The Notebook had such a special family aspect. Okay, I love you all so much. I'm gonna like cry just thinking about it. But like, it was so cool to bring in new people like throughout the run because you have a whole new show and a different actor makes different choices and it changes the way that you play off of them. And I think that that's so special about, making those choices and discovering those choices. Yeah, it kind of sucks that it's in front of 1,000 people if you don't like what you did, but I think it's really cool, like, discovery as an actor.
Yeah, like I'll never forget my first show with like Benji, Anna, and I had rehearsed for like an hour before we got in front of an audience. And so I was like, I actually have no idea how you're going to react to what I'm saying. And that was one of my favorite days of the Notebook was I was just like, okay, like we'll see what happens. And like
Oh,
that whole first week, it was so electric because I was like, we're both finding out how our relationship is gonna be. And now, of course, like Benji and I are very close. But at the time, I was like, you're a complete stranger to me. I have no idea who you are, and I'm just gonna trust you, and you're gonna trust me. And so that was great. Yeah, we called it. Marianne called that the epilogue when we started getting new people. That was like the epilogue, of the Notebook. Because it was cool. We got like Benji and Anna, and Joy was still there, and then Joy left, and
yeah.
we got Aisha, and
Aisha, yeah.
yeah. That's when a bunch of swings started going on too for like all the roles, just because that happens as the run goes on. And so it was beautiful. Like we never knew who was gonna be Noah and Allie, and it didn't matter because it was so every pair was so exciting.
Oh, it's incredible. So we have to talk about Live for Five because not only did The Notebook turn you into a Broadway star, but it also made you a podcast host. And today, my favorite podcast host is on my podcast.
Oh
So we
my.
have to talk about how did Live for Five come to be? Was that just something that you and Chase just decided to start? Like, I don't even know the story, the origin behind this.
I forget. So I mean, like we were part of the Penthouse, which was I like
Yeah,
to think an iconic Broadway dressing room.
it is the Penthouse Boys.
The Penthouse Boys. So that was like me, Alex Benoit, who was a swing back in Chicago with me. We're the OGs,
Yes.
Harley and Chase. And like Chase and I were always like, we should start a podcast. But no, we didn't feel like anyone needed to like hear from us, kind of. And we were like, no one needs our take on anything. Um,
I
so
did.
we're like, maybe we should just try an Instagram live. And then we did, and then I feel like we built this like great community. Like I still get messages from people. I think like that's something that I really wanted, and it's some I really wanted to view backstage when I was in high school of like what Broadway was like. I had no idea. Even when I got to Broadway, I was like, I feel like I'm not equipped. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like my dressing room's on a sixth floor walk up. Like I had no idea that that's. I was like, where's the elevator? I don't understand. But I mean, there were so many things that I was learning that Chase and I were like, I feel like we should talk about this with people or like answer people's questions or just like I don't know. Chase and I spent a lot of time talking about food.
Yeah.
It was a great way to get ready. I think also it became a ritual. Like we were like, okay, this was such a great ritual to getting ready, and it cut my nerves. Like I get even at the 320th performance, or however many we did, I was still nervous to step on stage every night. So like finding some sense of ritual or like calm, like I knew that when I was getting annoyed with Chase on Live for Five, like I was ready to do my show. Like I was like, okay, I'm ready.
Okay, bye. Thanks for
But
choosing me. Bye.
Chasing life, just the ridiculous things that he says, but
We love you, Chase.
we love you, Chase. Chase is one of my besties. I'm so sad. We were like planning to do Live for Five when he was doing Follies, which was sadly canceled at Pasadena Playhouse. I hope everyone out there is doing well and is safe, but very sad for the
Yeah.
theater and just the community in LA. But there will definitely be a return of Live for Five. I don't so
Yeah. Oh, I know I miss you guys, but I miss the fridge updates the most.
the fridge updates. I can
The
give updates of my regular fridge when Chase is back in New York. We can show you our fridge.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, just text me. Perfect. So to wrap up the notebook section of our interview, I need to ask you the most important question. Where do we go when we go? I'm sorry, I had to.
Where do we go? Usually after the Notebook, I went to bed.
Yeah.
Uh, it was funny to sing like "I want to go home" like as the last lyric for you going like you're about to like go on a
Like,
train
oh.
home. That was a wild experience. Um, but where do we go when we go? I don't know.
We go
I'm
see
excited.
the notebook on tour coming to a city near you very soon.
Yes, exactly. I can't wait to see it on tour.
Oh, I can't wait. So, alongside your work, you're about to head to Arizona to star in Spring Awakening alongside
Yeah,
Legs.
yeah.
What excites you about getting to be part of this production? I'm so excited. You and Casey, it's going to be powerful.
Yeah, I think that I mean Casey became a great friend this year. I think that it's such a deep character. And again, like I get to play like develop a friendship with somebody and really explore the lengths of that on stage. But also it's such a departure from Johnny Finn. Like it's like Moritz is very funny, but he is deeply troubled and sad. And so what I'm just excited to see. I'm excited for the process, honestly, for that role. And I it is a very sad story. I think Moritz's story is very sad, and that like he ultimately takes his own life because he feels so out of options. And so I think that's something that I'm excited to explore is like how on stage do I show that I feel like I've exhausted all my options. Like I no longer feel like I have any tethers to the present, and then and the fact that I would rather not be here. It's a very, very sad and dark story, but it's so different than Johnny Finn. I think he was like, "Will you do this with me?" I was like, "Yeah." It sounds so different than anything that I've done recently. It'll be great to spend a month in the desert doing that. Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be great. I can't wait to hear all about it. Alongside your work as a Broadway star, you've also ventured into TV and film, regional theater, and cabarets. What has wearing so many different hats and being part of such a wide array of incredible projects taught you as an actor?
I think it's just. I mean, I say I think I forget where the actor Richard Kind. He went to Northwestern. He was just in All In. He's phenomenal, but he's like I say yes to like 90% of things. And so I think I've just been saying yes to literally anything that I can say yes to because I mean within reason. Like I'm not I'm at a point where I can say no to a few things, but um like I'll always say yes to like usually like a cabaret or like a concert. Like I think that a lot of people didn't know that like I love to sing or can sing after Notebook just because Johnny Finn doesn't sing. So that's been fun. Um Especially like things that my peers write. Like I will always do like a table read or something or a workshop for like pizza. Like I don't care. I just want to help somebody develop something or work on something with a group. Like my friends from college we still get together once a week and we have like writing group and we all write I like minored in playwriting in college and so like we all write for like 2 hours and share and it's just a wonderful thing to have so many different communities to explore different facets of yourself. Yeah, and like Broadway is such a wonderful part of theater, but it's not like it's not the only theater that's being made. I grew up in I like most of my artistic experience was in Chicago, where the theater is so different than Broadway. It's like so much ensemble theater and new work that would not get produced in New York. But like Looking Glass Theater in Chicago is so different. If anyone's out there, definitely go check it out. That's David Catlin, who was my professor at school. It's physical theater with like a lot of aerials and silks and like a bunch of things. So like I saw that and that really informed my artistry, even though like seeing Moby Dick at Looking Glass like would not necessarily translate to like the Notebook on Broadway. I just like love exposing myself to as many different types of things as possible. Yeah.
You know, it's so cool to get to see how different theater is around the world. It's so cool to see.
Yeah.
Out of all the roles you've stepped into, are there a few particularly that stand out to you for specific reasons?
Absolutely. I think the moment where I felt like I had a really big breakthrough was doing This Is Our Youth in college. I played Warren, who I just had never been like Warren never left the stage. So it was like, okay, I'm starting something and it's not going to stop until I walk off stage. Like I have the whole play riding on me and like I think that could really enable ego for something, but it was like something that was very humbling for me and that I was like, okay, so much of you as an actor is like okay I have to believe that I'm interesting enough for people to want to watch but like also I can't be too self-indulgent in the way that I experience things on stage. Like you have to honor the moment for the moment and then move past it and not like luxuriate in it. And so that's where I definitely, and that was like a student production. Like it was directed by one of my best friends. And that's the process that I probably learned the most in just a 3-person show. I was playing somebody close to my own age, actually older than I was, but like by 2 years. And I just felt very connected to the text. So anytime where I feel that feeling again, where it's like, okay, I'm not putting like Johnny Finn, I didn't have to put that much on. Like I was like, this is similar to who I am, and I just get to be truthful in that. That's exciting. But then I did Bright Star in college as well, and that was something where I had to put everything on. Like I was like, I have no idea what it's like to have a child. I have no idea what it's like to have a child thrown off a train. I have no idea what it's like to reunite with someone after 10 years. Like I think that having those two experiences were great. I got to do a lot of Chekhov in college. I was in the cherry orchard. That was wonderful. Um, to just work with such great text, I think that was great. Um, those are kind of the three that are sticking out to me. Besides the Notebook, obviously. And then just reading plays, I'm constantly learning. There's so many roles that I can't wait to do and hope that I get the chance to. Yeah.
Yay. So looking back on everything you have achieved in this industry, what advice would you give your younger self entering the industry?
Um, I think that there are I think it's so easy to take things personally, and that is something that I really struggled with, which was I was like, I feel like I'm meant to be here, but like I'm not. There was like a long period where I like did not book anything, and I think that the right opportunity comes and will find you. Like the Notebook was mine. I think that and like whenever you get to see something that you audition for and like you get to see somebody else do it, it's so illuminating. Like I'm like, oh, I could have never done that, or like that is what they wanted, and that's not my energy at all. And even if I really worked on that, I couldn't do that. So I think knowing that like fit and audition is like it's crazy. Like you fit something so perfectly and it'll be your moment, but like there's so many things that will feel like you're trying to get something to fit. And those are the things where I like still audition for them, obviously, but I'm not as excited as something that feels like a perfect fit. And I think that's kind of been that things will be a perfect fit and that there will be a lot of things in between that are not perfect fits. And you just have to know that. And also, as Marianne always says, just focus on listening. Like I think that you're so worried as a young actor about like speaking and like it's my line and it's like how am I going to deliver this line? But it's like the information is there. There's a great Meryl Streep interview where they're like, "How do you cry all the time?" She's like, "I either cry because the script is good, or I can't cry because there's something wrong in the script." And it's like, okay, once the text is there, that you don't have to do that much. So I don't know. That's what Marianne would say, and she has way better advice than I do. So listen up. That's what I would say.
Uh, Carson, thank you so much for joining me on The Inspiration Show. You're truly one of my favorite people and performers. You never fail to make me laugh and smile, and I'm in constant awe of your incredible talent. And you've had such a special impact on my life and theater journey. It was such an honor to have you here. Thank you for inspiring me.
Thanks so much for inspiring me.
You're the best.